Well, hi everyone. So glad that you can join me again today. Today I'm going to be discussing Quantum's in-house early case analytics model in comparison to the typical e-discovery model. And what I have for you today is pretty exciting because this session gives the actual numbers when comparing if you apply early analytics in your case as opposed to not, which is the typical e-discovery model. So in-house early analytics moves analytics all the way up to the beginning of the e-discovery process and ensures that you're not sending tens, if not hundreds of thousands of non-relevant documents to outside counsel for review. And this spreadsheet really does illustrate and sort of firm up the difference from a financial perspective as to what happens when you use early case analytics on your cases. So with that, let's dive right into the model. Now this model reflects numbers from an actual case, so I think that's really helpful. Of course, this model is going to be need to be somewhat tweaked based on your environment, but I think it's a good general model that should give you a good idea with regards to how early case analytics can save you money. So in this sample case, or actually this is an actual case, but in this case that we have here, we started out with over 8 million documents, 1,200 gigabytes of data. We then went ahead and did some basic culling on those files, culling by domain name, date range, file type, and of course for some of the documents we conducted a folder level review. That got the documents down to about 50%. And I would say that a lot of companies do this already and can achieve about a 50% reduction in the data just by using these basic metadata type and folder review type activities. So once we did that, the data is down about half to 620 gigabytes. And then we run key terms, an initial set of key terms. And our rule of thumb over the last decade or so has been, and it's borne out pretty consistently, that when you run key terms, you get the data down about 93% to about 7% of the original size. And so this 86 gigabyte total here reflects that. So now we're sitting at around 86 gigabytes, and under the in-house early case analytics model, the data is still sitting in-house. Once we have that 86 gigabytes sort of partitioned off, we can run analytics against it. And in this particular case, when we ran analytics, it reduced the data set even farther to 15 gigabytes or 11,260 files. And in this case, we used pattern identification, non-relevant cluster identification, and visual similarity to locate non-relevant documents, and then also refine outside counsel's key terms. And that's really, really important. On this case, when outside counsel saw the analytics, when they were educated and informed with the visual analytics we gave them, they then came back a few days later with a refined set of terms. And that, of course, also helped target the collection right into the documents that were relevant to their case. So we go from 8 million documents to 11,260 documents, and ended up sending that 15 gigabyte size data set to a traditional e-discovery vendor for processing and review by outside counsel. And these are the costs we ended up with. About $58,000 in total costs at $5 per document. Now we'll probably drop that down to $1 a doc here later on, but that's where it's set currently. Now the alternative model is what we would call the typical eDiscovery model, and in the typical eDiscovery model, analytics isn't run until the very end of the process. So with early analytics, the analytics and the information reporting is done very early in the process, and with the typical eDiscovery model, it's done very late in the process, and of course that has a significant impact on costs. So here we go again. We started with 8 million documents, 1,200 gigabytes, and called that down 50% using basic metadata. And then the typical eDiscovery model will run terms. Now this 620 gigabytes ends up going to outside counsel. You can see that here. Goes to an eDiscovery vendor for processing. And then the eDiscovery vendor runs key terms, and the resulting key terms are then put into attorney review. This 258,000 documents goes into attorney review once key terms have been run by the vendor. And then they review that at $5 a document, and there is our total right there, and we have 1,384,000 compared to $58,000, and that demonstrates that the in-house early case analytics model saves a lot of money to the tune of $1.3 million on a single case. Now let's say that this was $1 a doc. Let's just say this was $1 a document. Put that both places here. At $1 a doc, it's $337,000 of savings. So obviously, the more expensive attorney review is, the more expensive the overall process is going to be, and of course the cost savings are going to be more significant as well. So we'll just keep it at $1 a doc here. I know a lot of review companies charge that. And there we have it, $337,000 in savings if you use and leverage the early analytics model. If you have 10 such cases a year, the savings is $3.3 million. Now if you change this to $5 a doc, it obviously is going to reflect greater savings. So you can jump into this spreadsheet and play around with it, put your own numbers in there. You can also contact me. I'm glad to spend a few minutes with you on the phone and doing a screen share or WebEx and actually working through this model with you and perhaps even conforming it to your environment's needs and expectations. But anyway, thanks for watching, and let me know if you have any questions.